John Hamm. John Hamm. Mr. Hamm. Hello, hello, welcome back to Underrated Movies. I'm your guy, I'm your man, Mr. Alton Henry. Today I'm going to talk to you about another film, The Town, starring Ben Affleck, Jeremy Renner, Blake Lively, Pete Postlewaite, Chris Cooper, Rebecca Hall, and John Hamm. It's a story about a bank robber who kidnaps one of their hostages and tries to make sure that she doesn't know anything about them once they release her. With Ben Affleck's character, I believe his name was Doug in the film, once he falls in love with his latest victim, he's putting himself in jeopardy once the FBI comes closer hot on his trail and his partners in crime get paranoid. Whether or not his involvement with the woman he loves might put them in the custody of the FBI. A crime action thriller directed by Ben Affleck, who's become a very good filmmaker. This is his second directional effort as a filmmaker. He has 3 films: Gone Baby Gone, this, and Live by Night, which I did not see. But this one is his best film to date as a filmmaker, and I think as an actor, one of his best performances. He plays a man named Dougie, like I said. Hey, Dougie. Doug. Falls in love with, Rebecca Hall, and, he just realizes one day once he checks up on her after his, taking her hostage, he realizes the psychological damage that she has gone through and very traumatized. So he checks up on her to see if she's okay. And the longer they hang out, he falls in love with her. I guess that's the thing. The longer you hang out with somebody, and then, I don't know, you just have that spark that just suddenly gets you. I think it does. Jeremy Renner, which this film earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, becomes paranoid about Ben Affleck. And it's like, dude, what the heck you doing dating what are the hostages we kidnapped? Are you insane? So he's kind of watchful on him to see if he don't mess up, and then he kind of assumed he had a relationship with his sister, played by Blake Lively, who she plays a druggy single mom. Um, I mean, she's good in there too. She's very cool. Blake Lively's cool in there. And they have the Boston accents. I think they nailed that. But no, I'm not a professional when it comes to knowing accents. But they were pretty cool. They were pretty good in there. John Hamm plays the FBI agent tracking them down. And man, I'm gonna just tell you straight up, one of the best crime films. But it kind of mirrors a little bit from what's that, Heat. It mirrors Heat a lot in a lot of ways. Where it's the story of basically bad guys, robbers, cops and robbers trying to balance their lives, having a love life while trying to live a life of crime. And then, of course, it backfires, and then they go, "Oh, why'd you do this to me? You lied to me," and all this stuff. And, trying to figure out, should they give up their life of crime to pursue living a normal life and having a relationship? We've seen that in tons of, a lot, a lot, a lot. We've seen that in a lot of crime films. And this film is no different, but I would say this one's better directed. And there's a lot more when it comes to exercising that specific story, which is basically the story of the movie. Um, Chris Cooper, who's also in this film, a veteran actor, who really has one scene in here. He plays Ben Affleck's uh, father in the film. That's actually one of my favorite scenes where he's pretty much discussing that, life with him, and then the possibility that Ben Affleck mentions he may not see him again because he's planning to retire a life of crime from a life of crime to to get out of it. Then you have that little plot detail to where the main bad guy or his boss questions, or questions like, okay, if you do decide to kind of leave this life behind, we find out who your girlfriend is, we're gonna just pay her a visit, um, you know, harm her and then harm you, because once you're in the team, that kind of story stuff before. But I think this one here, I think they nail it with the performances. They nail it like I think they make the characters more convoluted and more kind of more gritty and realistic. The action scenes in here are phenomenal. I think it has one of the best car chase scenes in a heist film I've seen in a long time, especially not overshadowing it with explosions, not overshadowing it with just shootout. There's a pretty good car chase heist scene where they're wearing nuns. I actually like it when they wear the costumes. The costumes actually are pretty scary. Uh, and then they have this amazing shootout towards the end. I think really to its core, this is I think one of the better directed crime heist films that really delivered a lot of emotion and a lot of like seriousness. Like it's hard to kind of find movies where I feel like this is old school cinema where it's an action film, but it's a serious drama at the same time. Nowadays, you don't really get that. You don't get serious action films. You don't normally get that. I feel like this film tackles a type of genre or a rarity of film that you rarely see nowadays where there's excitement. I mean, there's a little bit of funny dialogue in there where it comes from, you know, how the film is written. Well developed characters, interesting story, and amazing action sequences. There's a pretty good shootout scene that had me at the edge of my seat towards the end. There's an extended cut version of this. The movie's been out for over a decade. There's two different versions. Well, there's three. There's the theatrical cut that's barely over 2 hours, the extended cut, and then there's the extended cut with the alternate ending. Personally, I like the alternate ending. Um, there's a little shifting around with the editing. One particular scene where it kind of addresses what happens to Ben Affleck. It's a foreshadow scene that happens to Ben Affleck, where basically the guys that he jumps later in the film for having to, because in the film there's a moment in the film where Rebecca Hall and Ben Affleck go on a date. And she mentions about some thugs scaring her and um, scaring her and taunting her one time. She's trying to make it to work, and then turns out that Ben Affleck's character recognizes who these guys are, so he goes, he pays a visit to him and basically beats the hell out of him. He asks Jeremy Renner to help him out. He does, but when he looks at him, he's kind of confused because Ben Affleck doesn't tell him the reason why that they're going to jump on some people. So he's kind of confused as to what happens, why that they decided to jump on him, and he doesn't bother asking questions later, but he does ask the thugs that he jumped on, like, well, what did they do that caused him to go over to beat him up? And after that, you don't hear from him again. But in the extended cut, in the alternate ending, because I think the alternate ending includes the alternate ending, I think it's like 2-3 minutes longer. and it's 2.5 hours for the extended cut. Um, they bring back those guys again who are beaten up, and one of the thugs that works with the crew that Ben Affleck is with gives them a tip where Ben Affleck will be after the end of the heist in the climax sequence of the film. So basically, towards the very end, and this is a spoiler, those guys find out where Ben Affleck is at, takes the money that he robbed from the heist at the um, baseball stadium, and basically shoots Ben Affleck, kills him, and takes the money away. The movie ends a little bit on a downer where Rebecca Hall will never be able to possibly see Ben Affleck. But the theatrical ending where he escapes the police and everybody and lives a life somewhere with the possible hint that those two might get together again someday in the future. I'm assuming the film had test screenings for which ending that they preferred. The downer ending, alternate ending was probably maybe too much of a downer for people. I actually prefer that ending compared to the other one, but to be honest with you, I feel like the ending that they escaped was a little bit different, and I feel like the ending for the alternate cut, which he passes on, felt too much of a cliche. So, all in all, I would have to say maybe it makes sense and something a little bit different to use the ending that they use for the theatrical to have Ben Affleck's character survive compared to having a cliche crime film where basically the main character dies, where they usually do that in crime films, where sometimes or a good half of most of the time the main character kind of dies, gets killed, you know. So um, all in all, I feel like this is a classic action crime movie that should be talked about a lot more and really should be revisited because rare you don't really get serious like dramatic intense action films like this anymore, especially like there's hardly any visual effects in here, practical effects in here. I loved it. The Town, have you seen it? Comment below, let me know if you have, what you thought about it, and let me know what is your favorite underrated movie.